NXT Conclave. I would now like to take a moment to introduce our next guest who also joins us virtually. We have with us Mr. Keith Vyaz. He is former MP, House of Commons, United Kingdom. He's also the longest serving Indian origin member of Parliament. Conducting this conversation will be Senior Consulting Editor of NewsX, Mr. Vineet Malhotra. They will be discussing a very pertinent topic next in global affairs. Vineet, over to you.
Thank you, Devika. Thank you so much. All right, Keith is here with us. Keith, appreciate you joining us. It's always a pleasure to see you. First up, a very simple question. What do you make of this initiative that has been started by us? What are your impressions?
Greetings from London. I'm so sorry that I can't be there in person. I really wanted to be with all of you in New Delhi because I think this is a very important conclave. At this moment in time, the world is facing so many difficulties, so many challenges, and to have so many people who are decision makers, movers and shakers in the world of economics and politics and journalism coming together in order to discuss these issues, I think is really important. I think this has been a long time coming. NewsX has, of course, provided a huge amount of information to India and the rest of the world, but this is the next stage, I think, in the development of ideas, and I warmly welcome what is being done. I'm just sorry that I can't be there in person.
Keith, a very important question. What do you think the India-UK relationship is going to look like, say, in the next 10 years, according to you?
Well, it's almost 40 years since I was elected as the first person of Indian origin to sit in the House of Commons for over 50 years. And at that stage, the relationship was good, but it was very much one of India being on the periphery of world affairs. Fast forward 40 years, and India has become this global superpower. So relations with the UK are very important now. To me, as someone of Indian origin who is British, it's extremely important that this should be one of the pivotal relationships in our whole diplomatic and foreign policy area. I think it's improved. I think it's become one of equals. And I think this is because India itself has had a succession of very impressive leaders, all of whom have argued very strongly that India will only deal with countries on the basis of equality. And I think that that relationship can only become stronger and stronger. I was present at the first EU-India summit, which took place when I was a Foreign Office Minister under Tony Blair. And I know there was a great deal of excitement around that. But now meetings of this kind are pretty routine, and you can't really have any of the big decisions in the world without having India involved in those decisions. And the relationship between our two countries is one that is strong and pivotal, and I think can only get better, but it takes goodwill on all sides to make sure that happens. India now has many friends in the world, not just the UK, but we need to make sure that India and Britain, this should be the #1 friendship as far as our foreign policy is concerned.
All right, talking about friends, let's also talk about the other two great democracies, India and US. Do you think they're headed for a great future together? There's a smile on your face.
I mean, one can only look at the chemistry between Narendra Modi and Donald Trump to know that there is something very special going on. It's probably beyond a bromance. It's much more important than that. And what we saw is that Prime Minister Modi went to Washington before many other world leaders, certainly before the Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom and other countries, and the President of France. He went there, he met President Trump in the Oval Office. There was a great deal of warmth, no doubt, manifested by many years of friendship. And I think we can all remember Trump's visit to India, how successful that was, and Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States previously. But a visit is not enough. What really matters is bilateral negotiations. I'm very worried about the threats that the United States is making to put on tariffs on India and other countries. I think we should be moving into an era of free trade. It's very odd that a Republican president, a free trader, should be talking about tariffs. So I think what we need to do is make sure Prime Minister Modi has further conversations with Donald Trump and explains to him that tariffs are not going to help the world economy. It's not going to raise people out of poverty. It's not going to assist. I think these are things that really matter. However, I think there is one fly in the ointment, if you like, and that is the treatment of Indians in the United States who happen to have overstayed their visas. I was very alarmed to see the way in which Indian people were being treated in America, put on planes suddenly, even though some of them may have strong family relationships there, and treated in this way. There's no need for that. If we're going to be friends and want to work together, then we need to respect our citizens and make sure that the next time it happens, it's done with due process, not the knocks on the door by ICE and just putting Indian people on planes and sending them back. We don't want that. We saw that with Canada and overseas students. Indian people studying and working abroad make a huge contribution to the countries that they live in. 1.8 million Indians live in the United Kingdom. If they suddenly left, it would be a complete disaster for the British economy. So while we go on with our special relationship, while Mr. Modi and President Trump have a good relationship, let's treat our citizens with respect. That is very important. It shouldn't overshadow the relationship, but it is a staging point which we need to acknowledge, and it needs to stop. Let's treat people with respect.
Keith, you represent both the worlds, India and the United Kingdom. You know, for both these countries, what does the future hold, especially in the age of artificial intelligence?
Well, I would love to represent India, but unfortunately I'm probably regarded very much as a British representative, having been in the British Parliament for 32.5 years. I think what we need to do is to foster on a much stronger basis people-to-people contact. And we need to also make sure in this day and age that there is a better connection between small businesses in India and in the United Kingdom. I think there's far too much emphasis on the big companies getting together and creating wealth. But actually the real wealth creators are small and medium-sized businesses. They can help India and the United States at a grassroots level. And similarly, it could help Britain and India develop our relationships. I think we need to continue with this kind of dialogue. That's why this conference organized by NewsX is very important. I've looked carefully at the headings of the various symposia. I would very much like to have been at the health symposium because I suffer from type 2 diabetes and I chair a charity that deals with diabetes. I think diabetes is an epidemic all over the world. You have 100 million people suffering from diabetes in India. Some of our best doctors, some of our best endocrinologists are of Indian origin. We need to share that information and make sure that it works. Let me give you one practical example. Abbott, an American company that operates in Chicago, has developed a very special tracking system for your blood sugar. However, it costs 5,400 rupees every time you buy one of these, and you have to change it every 2 weeks. Now, this is outside the scope of the average Indian to be able to afford this kind of mechanism. We need to be talking to these companies so that they supply this equipment at a much lower level, or at least share the patent so an Indian company can develop this mechanism in India. And I think they'll still make a lot of money out of it, so they don't have to worry about producing them, but at least it will help people. So your health symposium, which I know is taking place over the next 3 days, is as important as economics, because a healthy workforce, a workforce that is able to contribute so much to the economy of a country, is extremely important for the progress of nations.
Keith, one last question before we let you go. What do you think the world at large should look forward to?
Well, peace. One of the statements that we will hold President Trump to is that he is interested in peace. He's a deal maker. Why do we keep going on about America? Because, of course, America is the biggest economy in the world. Second is China. We need to make sure that when the President of the United States speaks, that he speaks with the support of what we call the free world, the democracies. And one of the things he said is, in his last administration, there was no wars started when he was president. I think there were some wars, actually. It wasn't kind of a blanket no wars. But what he was saying was he didn't start any of them. So if he is a peacemaker, if he brings the Russians and the Ukrainians and Europeans to the table and gets peace in Ukraine, if there is peace in the Middle East, that will make a huge difference to the way in which the world operates. This would help the entrepreneurial talent of the Indian people and the British people be able to produce so much more effectively the economy of the future. So first you have to have peace. And if that happens, that's going to be great. The second thing is you have to have free trade. You cannot live in an environment where individual countries are slapping on tariffs. It doesn't help India if all these countries in Europe and America start slapping on tariffs. We need to have a proper free trade agreement with all these nations. So those are the two things I think I'd like to look forward to. Peace, free trade and prosperity, which will lead to an alleviation of poverty. And that's what we have to do. We need to make sure that people are able to live their lives in fulfillment. Reducing taxes, providing an economy that allows businesses to grow, and giving education to young people. So many people of talent cannot have the benefit of education because it's not available to them. And of course, to be healthy. All these topics are brilliantly covered in this incredible symposium that you all have put together. The conclave of NewsX, I think, will come out with so many ideas. But as we all know, it's all very well meeting. What matters is the legacy. And the next thing is holding this conclave again in either New Delhi, or may I offer you Leicester as your next port of call. You don't always have to hold this in Delhi. You can hold it elsewhere, but I hope it's going to be very successful. And I only wish that I was able to join you at this incredible NewsX conclave. I hope it's going to be very successful.
Keith, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joined us all the way from Leicester, United Kingdom. You've taken care of all our questions the way you took care of Leicester for so many years. Keith Vyaz, everyone. A big round of applause.
Indeed.